Imagine if you could, I don't know, boost your brain power whenever you needed it, or maybe remember things much better.
Or feel totally energized all day long just by understanding your own biology better.
Yeah, exactly. And what about slowing down aging? Really aging more gracefully. It sounds like science fiction, but it leads us right into, well, biohacking.
It does. Biohacking is basically taking charge of your own biology, isn't it? It's this idea that you can actively influence your body and your environment to, optimize things.
Optimize health, performance.
Instead of just accepting your biological baseline.
Right, like a kind of DIY biology, really personalized. And for this deep dive, we've gathered quite a bit of info on the science behind all this. We're going to look at everything from, diet and lifestyle changes.
The more common stuff.
All the way to some really advanced tech like implants. And even, well, the controversial side, genetic modification.
Yeah, and our mission today really is to get past the hype. Let's dig into the actual science. What are these methods? How are they supposed to work biologically?
And can we really push beyond our natural limits? What's realistic?
Exactly. And we also have to talk about the risks, the practical side of things.
Definitely. So let's start with the basics. What is biohacking? Our sources describe it as people taking control of their biology, often using methods outside of standard medicine.
Yeah, that's a good summary. And it seems to break down into roughly 3 main camps, you could say.
Okay, what are those?
Well, first, and probably the most accessible, is nutritional and lifestyle hacking. This is where you see things like keto diets, intermittent fasting, cold showers.
Baths.
Ice baths, yeah. Sleep tracking wearables, definitely. And using nootropics, those substances people take, hoping to boost, memory or focus.
Okay, so diet, lifestyle, supplements. What's next?
Then you get into the more, let's say, tech-heavy side, technological biohacking. This is where you hear about people called grinders.
Grinders.
Yeah, folks who are actually implanting devices, maybe chips to open doors or pay for things, or even tiny magnets in their fingertips.
Magnets? For what?
To sense electromagnetic fields, apparently. That's sort of extra sense.
Huh, okay. And the third category?
That's the genetic frontier, genetic biohacking, using tools like CRISPR.
Ah, CRISPR. The gene editing tool we hear so much about, like molecular scissors for DNA.
Exactly. People trying to use it to actually modify their own genes, which, as you can imagine, is, well, it's complex and raises a lot of questions.
Right. So let's zoom in on one big area, the brain. I think everyone wants a sharper mind, better focus, right? What are people trying in that area?
For sure. Nootropics or smart drugs are really popular. Things like modafinil, that's actually a prescription drug for narcolepsy, but people use it off-label for alertness.
Okay, what else?
Then you have L-theanine, which is in tea, often used with caffeine for that kind of focused calm. And the Racetam family of compounds, some users claim they help with memory.
So it's mostly pills or supplements for the brain?
Not entirely. There are also techniques like neurofeedback.
How does that work?
Well, you're basically hooked up to an EEG, which reads your brainwaves in real time. The idea is you get feedback, visual or auditory, and you learn to consciously change your brain activity patterns.
Train your brain directly.
Kind of, yeah. And there's also brainwave entrainment using lights or sounds at specific frequencies to try and nudge your brain into certain states, like relaxation or focus.
Interesting. And then there's TDCS. That sounds a bit more intense. Transcranial direct current stimulation.
It does sound intense, but it's actually using very weak electrical currents. Electrodes are placed on the scalp over specific brain areas.
And the goal is?
The low current can make the neurons in that area slightly more or less likely to fire. It's being researched for things like depression, maybe even enhancing learning or memory, but it's still very much experimental.
So with all these brain hacks, nootropics, neurofeedback, TDCS, what's the scientific consensus? Do they actually work?
The view is pretty cautious, generally. Some nootropics might offer short-term benefits, especially, say, if you haven't slept well. But the long-term safety, the effects on healthy people over years, that's much less clear. And techniques like TDCS are really still research tools. There can be side effects if it's not done right. It's not like flipping a switch for better memory.
Okay, that makes sense. Maybe hacking the body is a bit more grounded, easier to see results. What are people doing for physical enhancement?
Yeah, the focus there is often on metabolic health, building muscle, and of course the big one, slowing down aging. Intermittent fasting, or IF, is everywhere.
Right, restricting when you eat, not just what.
Exactly. Different schedules like 16 hours fasting, 8 hours eating, or longer fasts. And the idea isn't just calorie cutting.
No, what else?
Research suggests IF can improve insulin sensitivity, which is key for blood sugar control, and it might boost autophagy.
Autophagy. That's the cell cleanup process.
The body clearing out old, damaged cell parts. It's thought to be important for health span, maybe longevity. Then you have the cold exposure stuff, cryotherapy chambers, or just cold showers.
Brr. Why do people do that?
The claim is it reduces inflammation, improves circulation, maybe even helps burn fat by activating brown fat.
Interesting. What else is popular physically?
Red light therapy is another one, using specific wavelengths of red and near-infrared light. People use it on their skin, hoping to boost collagen or reduce wrinkles, or on muscles for recovery.
Okay.
And then there's the whole world of supplements and personalized nutrition, trying to optimize vitamins, minerals, gut health, all based on testing.
It does feel like some of these lifestyle things, like IF, might have more solid research behind them compared to some brain stuff.
Generally, yes. There's quite a bit of clinical research on IF for metabolic health markers, for instance. And cold exposure has been shown to increase norepinephrine, which definitely boosts alertness. The science is maybe a bit further along for some of these body hacks.
Okay, now let's get into that really cutting-edge area you mentioned, genetic biohacking. CRISPR. This feels like stepping into a whole different league.
It really is. CRISPR-Cas9 is revolutionary for scientists, allowing precise DNA edits. But when DIY biohackers try to use it on themselves, well, that's where things get complicated and, frankly, risky.
Yeah, we've heard stories, right?
Oh.
People trying to give themselves bigger muscles or resistance to diseases.
Exactly. There have been cases. Josiah Zayner is probably the most famous example. Back in 2017, he live-streamed himself injecting a CRISPR construct.
The one meant to block myostatin, the muscle growth inhibitor.
That's the one. Trying to enhance muscle growth, it was a huge statement, but also raised serious safety concerns.
So what are the big risks with doing CRISPR on yourself, I mean, beyond the obvious?
Well, a major one is off-target effects. CRISPR is precise, but not perfect. It might cut DNA in the wrong place.
And that could cause, what, cancer? Other problems?
Potentially, yes. Unintended mutations could have serious health consequences down the line. Plus, doing this outside a controlled lab setting, without oversight, without understanding the full biological cascade, it's incredibly risky. Scientists and regulators are, understandably, very concerned.
So with all this going on, the lifestyle changes, the tech implants, the genetic frontiers, where is biohacking heading? What does the future look like?
It feels like it's moving towards more integration, maybe becoming part of personalized medicine.
Yeah.
We're getting better at tracking our own biology with wearables. AI diagnostics are improving.
Right, more data about ourselves.
Exactly. And companies like Neuralink aiming for brain-computer interfaces.
Yeah.
That's pushing the boundary way out there. It suggests a future where the line between therapy and enhancement gets even blurrier.
And you'd expect more regulation to follow, right? As these things become more powerful or common.
I think that's almost inevitable, yes. As the capabilities grow, especially around genetics or brain interfaces, governments and regulatory bodies will likely step in more to manage safety, access, ethical questions.
Which brings us back to the big question. Can we really upgrade ourselves, it sounds like? Maybe, but with caveats.
That sums it up pretty well, I think. Yes, we can definitely influence our health, our energy, maybe even our cognition through smart choices about diet, exercise, sleep, and maybe some technology.
Wow.
But biology is incredibly complex. We don't understand all the downstream effects, especially with the more invasive stuff like implants or gene editing. There are limits, and there are definite risks and ethical lines to consider.
So it's a glimpse into a future where maybe we live longer, healthier, more capable lives. But it's not simple.
Not at all. It opens up fascinating possibilities, but also forces us to ask some tough questions.
Like the one posed in some of our reading. Just because we can do something, should we?
That's the core question, isn't it? Something for all of us to think about as this field keeps evolving.